The first sign of real trouble came on August 28, 2025, a date that would quickly become infamous in diplomatic circles. On that day, Japan's chief trade negotiator, Ryosei Akazawa, abruptly canceled his highly anticipated trip to Washington, D.C., just hours before his scheduled departure. This wasn't just a minor scheduling issue, it was a deliberate and unmistakable signal. Japan's patience with U.S. trade policy had finally run out, and the world was about to see the consequences. Akazawa was supposed to finalize a landmark trade and investment deal, a pact that had taken months of painstaking negotiation. But the sudden cancellation exposed deep cracks in trust between the two allies. Tokyo's official explanation cited administrative issues. But behind closed doors, frustration was boiling over a critical U.S. error in a new tariff agreement, an error that Japanese officials saw as careless, if not disrespectful. The cancellation was not just a delay but a calculated strategic pause, and it sent shockwaves through the White House and the broader diplomatic community. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick had just declared the deal ready for signing, but Japan's move revealed a major disconnect between the allies, catching U.S. officials off guard. What should have been a diplomatic win for President Trump instead became a very public display of discord, with the administration scrambling to respond. The White House was forced to reckon with the fallout of its unpredictable policy shifts, as analysts and officials debated how things had unraveled so quickly. The world watched closely as a key U.S. ally openly challenged Washington's approach, raising questions about the future of the alliance. The canceled visit wasn't just a diplomatic hiccup, it was a stark warning that the U.S.-Japan economic relationship, built over decades, was now at serious risk. Billions of dollars in trade and decades of goodwill now hung in the balance, with investors and business leaders on both sides of the Pacific growing increasingly anxious. The stage was set for a confrontation neither side truly wanted, but one that seemed impossible to avoid as tensions continued to escalate. The partnership, once considered unbreakable, was suddenly in peril, and the world was watching to see what would happen next. At the heart of the crisis was a botched tariff deal, one that would send shockwaves through both governments and the global market. In July 2025, the US and Japan agreed to a flat 15% tariff on most Japanese goods, a compromise to avoid Trump's threatened 25% tariffs. The deal was meant to be a lifeline, a way to keep trade flowing and prevent a damaging trade war. For Japan, it wasn't ideal, but it offered stability. Businesses could plan, and exporters braced for the new normal, hoping the worst was behind them. But when the US issued its executive order, Japanese officials discovered a disastrous mistake. The new 15% tariff was being stacked on top of existing duties, not replacing them as everyone had assumed. This stacking meant some products would face tariffs of 20% or more, not the agreed 15%. For Japanese exporters, the numbers simply didn't add up, and confusion spread quickly. The US admitted the error, but weeks passed with no correction. Each day, uncertainty grew, and businesses on both sides of the Pacific were left in limbo. Tokyo's trust in Washington eroded fast. What was supposed to be a show of cooperation now looked like a diplomatic blunder. Japanese leaders began to wonder if this was incompetence, or a sign the US wasn't serious about the deal. Was it a simple oversight, or something more deliberate? The technical error became a diplomatic standoff, with both sides waiting for the other to make the next move. For Japan, moving forward without a formal fix was impossible. Trade ground to a halt, and frustration mounted. The episode proved that in global trade, the details matter, and trust can vanish overnight. Even a small error can have massive consequences. Until the US corrected the order, the deal was deadlocked. Every day of delay cost millions and deepened the rift. The handshake meant nothing without the fine print. In the end, trust and attention to detail proved to be the real currency of international agreements. Japan's demands were simple: fix the mistake and honor the original deal. Tokyo wanted a new, legally binding US order stating the 15% tariff replaced all previous duties. Verbal promises weren't enough. Japan needed legal certainty for its businesses, another sticking point. The US had promised to lower tariffs on Japanese cars from 27.5% to 15%, but hadn't followed through. The auto industry is Japan's export engine. Without this reduction, the deal was meaningless. Japan's leaders, including Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshimasa Hayashi, publicly pressed the US to act. The message: Japan was ready to invest, but only if the US proved it was a reliable partner. By holding firm, Japan signaled it wouldn't accept a bad deal. The ball was in Washington's court. No correction, no deal. The next US move would decide the fate of the agreement and the alliance. The standoff was now a test of American competence and credibility. Would the White House fix its mistake, or risk a deeper rift with Japan? The tariff fight wasn't the only disruption. In August 2025, the US abruptly ended the de minimis exemption for Japan and others, meaning every package, no matter how small, now faced customs duties and paperwork. Chaos followed. Japan Post suspended some shipments to the US, citing unclear rules and no way to guarantee delivery. This wasn't retaliation, it was confusion. Other countries, from Australia to Germany, halted low-value shipments too. The move, aimed at Chinese e-commerce giants, ended up hurting allies and American consumers. Orders for unique goods were cancelled or delayed, showing how policy can hit everyday life. The poorly communicated change severed supply chains and frustrated buyers. What was meant as a targeted strike became a global headache. It was another example of how abrupt policy can backfire, damaging relationships and trust. The fallout was immediate and painful for Japan's economy. In July 2025, even before the postal chaos, Japan's exports to the US saw their biggest drop in 4 years. Tariffs drove up costs, slashed demand, and forced manufacturers to cut shipments. The government downgraded its annual growth forecast from 1.2% to just 0.7%. For a country already struggling with slow growth, this was a major blow. The pain rippled through supply chains, hitting small businesses and workers. The trade fight moved from the negotiating table to the factory floor. Japan's leaders faced mounting pressure to secure a fair deal. The numbers made clear. This wasn't just about diplomacy, it was about economic survival. Japan was determined not to let a flawed deal deepen the damage. At the center of the standoff was a massive bargaining chip, Japan's proposed $550 billion investment in the US. This package would have created American jobs and signaled a deep partnership, but Japan made it clear, no fix, no investment. The money would only flow if the US corrected the tariff order and lowered car duties as promised. The investment, once a done deal, became leverage. Japan's message, honor your word, or the deal is off. For President Trump, losing this investment was a political and economic embarrassment. It undercut his narrative of attracting foreign capital and creating jobs. The standoff showed that trade policy and investment are inseparable. Japan's move proved that trust and predictability are prerequisites for international capital. The fate of the $550 billion package now rested on the White House's willingness to compromise. Would the administration value the investment enough to fix its policy? The answer would define the future of the alliance. The US-Japan relationship now stands at a crossroads, facing one of its most significant challenges in decades. Decades of partnership and mutual trust are being tested by a clash of philosophies: Trump's America First agenda versus Japan's commitment to a rules-based international order. Both sides are struggling to reconcile national interests with the need for cooperation. The risk is that economic friction could spill over into security and strategic cooperation, threatening the stability that both countries have worked hard to maintain in the Asia-Pacific region. The next US move is critical. If Washington amends the tariff orders, the deal and future investment could be salvaged, preserving jobs and economic growth on both sides of the Pacific. But if the US refuses, the standoff could drag on for months or even years, hurting both economies and pushing Japan to seek new alliances in Asia and beyond. The world is watching closely. If the US treats a close ally this way, what hope is there for other partners who depend on American leadership and stability? The dispute is eroding faith in America as a reliable partner, raising questions about the future of global alliances and economic cooperation. It's a warning to the global trading system, a signal that even long-standing agreements can be upended by shifting political winds. The administration's unilateral approach is fueling doubts about US leadership, leaving allies and rivals alike uncertain about the future direction of American policy. The question now is whether shared interests and common values can overcome this rupture, or if the divide will only deepen. Billions in trade and investment, and the very future of the alliance, hang in the balance, with ripple effects that could reach far beyond these two nations. The outcome will set the tone for US-Japan relations in a more confrontational era, shaping the global order for years to come. This is a test of whether the partnership can adapt and emerge stronger, or if it will become another casualty of the ongoing trade wars and shifting alliances.